So we're aware now that there are so many hormones that are playing a role in our all over health, including our metabolic health. We've talked a little bit about cortisol. We haven't even gotten to all of the metabolic hormones, actually, like insulin, leptin, ghrelin. But these hormones, they just play a role in every aspect of our bodies, and they're metabolically important as well. I thought it might be good to just talk or define maybe what metabolism is before we jump into talking about metabolic hormones and belly fat. So something that many of us know very well is that metabolism is involved in body composition of lean muscle and fat, because metabolic hormones instruct our body, our cells, and our tissues on how to manage and deposit fat and muscle and how to distribute it as well. So one of the hormones that does that, we've already talked about it, is cortisol. But metabolism is more than just deposition of fats and and energy creation. I mean, it is kind of all energy creation, but it's I guess it's more important than just thinking about it as, how quickly you gain weight and how quickly you might lose it. So it's a functional concept, and it refers to the speed and efficiency with which your body is carrying out metabolic processes. So in other words, your metabolic function will impact not only your speed and rate of weight gain or weight loss, but also how you feel, how you process your food and digest your food. It will impact the level of fat in your body compared to the level of protein or muscle mass. And it also will influence how quickly you're able to process thoughts and articulate thoughts, remember things, your cognitive function, and so much more. Because metabolism is intimately tied to your hormonal health, and your hormones, by the way, are impacting so many different systems in your body. I mean, all of your systems in your body. So you get this metabolism, which is like your all over body speed and processing, being influenced by your hormonal health. And as soon as you move into hormonal imbalance, then that leads to a whole lot of symptoms and a whole lot of trouble. Your endocrine system, otherwise known as your hormonal system, secretes hormones. And these hormones act as chemical messengers between your brain and your body's cells and tissues and organs. And think also about things like secretory glands in your body. This is all endocrine and hormonal, sort of stuff. So we can roughly divide up the types of hormones that are being produced in your endocrine system into a few different types. So I'm just going to bring up my whiteboard here. Thought that I would get my my drawing board because it makes it a lot easier than typing. I'm going to pop this out. So we can roughly divide up the types of hormones that our bodies are producing into, let's just go for maybe 3 different sets initially. So the first one would be the reproductive types of hormones. So in this case, we get hormones like estrogen and progesterone. That's not it though. We have luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and then we have one which is a little bit of a regulator of all of these, and that is your sex hormone binding globulin. Okay, so that's the first little section. And actually, if you've ever had an issue with a condition known as fibroids or polycystic ovarian syndrome, then you'll know what I mean by the sex hormone binding globulin, because it's quite likely that somewhere in the past you would have had blood tests done which gave you a reading of a low level of the sex hormone binding globulin. So essentially what that means is that the sex hormone binding globulin is just not doing what it should be doing, and it's leading to an excess of certain hormones. I've forgotten one here. There's also testosterone, often abbreviated to TT, and there's the androgens. So they're also really important in terms of the reproductive hormones. So then there are the adrenal hormones. So the adrenal hormones are the ones that are basically being produced in response to stress. So we have hormones here like cortisol, we have adrenaline, and we have noradrenaline here as well. I know that these are classified as neurotransmitters, but they also do play a role in the, the adrenal regulation. So we think about them as hormones, and they're acting in a similar way to hormones. And then we also have another hormone known as the DHEAs. Okay, so you might remember that was on that chart with all of the hormone synthesis. So those are the first two groups of hormones. The third set that many of you will already be familiar with is the thyroid hormones. Thyroid has an integral role in metabolism, so it's going to be important to think about your thyroid health if you do have cortisol belly, or if you have any issues with any of the other estrogens, progesterones, testosterone, and cortisol. So you would naturally start to think, I should get my thyroid hormones checked. So here we're talking about T4, which is the less activated form, T3, which is the more potent form. You can also get hormones like reverse T3, which acts against the T3. And of course, the stimulating hormone that leads to the creation of actual thyroid hormones is TSH. But that is coming from the brain. But anyway, you've got all these hormones, and you've got, in terms of that TSH, we do have stimulating hormones for the reproductive system and the adrenals as well, but I won't go into all of that. It's just that you might recall having a TSH reading at some point. So you can see that there are three vitally important groups of hormones that regulate everything from reproduction through to stress tolerance, resilience, mood, memory with thyroid, energy levels, body composition, fertility. It's just so much. And actually there's an interplay between all of these hormones in the condition known as cortisol belly. And in fact, in any condition at all, there's an interplay between these. If you think about issues with fertility, you have interplay of possibly low thyroid function and hyperadrenal function. If you think about conditions like, adrenal exhaustion, adrenal depletion, this is actually referring to issues with how the brain is communicating with the adrenals. And initially there will be a hyperexcitable state. We call this in naturopathic circles HPA axis issues. And the HPA refers to hypothalamus in the brain, pituitary in the brain, and the adrenal system. But there's also interplay with the ovaries as well. So HPA issues can lead to estrogens not being produced in the ovaries, or too much production. So I think you get the idea that there's going to be that interplay between all of those systems. And with this messaging system, where these hormones like adrenaline, progesterone, LH, T4, T3, where they're all acting as chemical messages in your body, it allows your brain to really control all of the activity in your body and how it operates and how it performs. But you need a good level of all of these hormones to be able to perform efficiently. If you don't have a good level of these hormones, if some of those hormones on that synthesis chart are out, then you can end up seeing the impact on your daily life and how you're eating, how you're sleeping, how you're feeling, and also even how you're behaving.